Right. Okay. Let's unpack this. We're diving into that really personal, sometimes pretty emotionally charged area.
Hmm.
The stuff that connects us to our past.
Yeah.
The box, I mean, or maybe it's boxes, plural, or piles even.
Could be anywhere. Attic, closet.
Exactly. Under the bed. And they're full of, old photos, letters that are fading, maybe trinkets someone inherited, things that aren't just objects. They feel like they hold actual memories.
Mm-hmm. Real pieces of the past.
And we cherish that connection. We really do, to our history, the people.
Mm-hmm.
But, God, all that stuff can also feel, well, just overwhelming.
It's a definite tension.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Loving the history, but dealing with the sheer amount of physical stuff it brings.
Mm.
Especially when life changes, like downsizing, moving, or, maybe the toughest time, dealing with things after losing someone.
And that tension you mentioned, that's exactly what the source material we're looking at today really zeroes in on.
Well,
It highlights how the very same object, I mean, the exact same thing, can look completely different to people in the same family.
right. Like one person sees grandma's treasured figurine.
A real link to her, something tangible.
Yeah.
While another relative, maybe short on space, just sees, well, clutter.
More stuff for the attic.
Exactly.
Right.
Attic overflow. And the article points out this isn't just about being tidy, it's personal. Deeply personal.
And that difference. That's where the problems
That's
start.
fertile ground for conflict, yeah. Especially when decisions have to be made maybe quickly.
That potential for friction, the source, really focuses on that. So for this deep dive, our mission is to take this source material. It's excerpts from an article, When Keepsakes Become Clutter, a kinder way to curate your memories,
Mm.
and really dig into it. We want to pull out the practical steps, sure, but also the why, the insights, the psychology behind it all.
The goal being...
Goal is to figure out how to honor those memories, the lives, the stories,
Mhm.
but without getting totally buried by the physical stuff.
And it's a helpful article for that. It looks closely at the emotional side of things, our connection to these sentimental objects.
So it's not just throw it out advice.
No, not at all. It offers a structured approach, but the key word is gentle. It's much more about understanding the feelings involved and processing them, alongside dealing with the actual items.
Okay, let's start there then, the emotional side. Why do we hold on so tightly? The source talks about this, right? It uses the term linking items.
Yes, linking items. And it's a really powerful concept. The source explains them as emotional tethers, like anchors.
Anchors to what?
To people, mostly, or specific moments, maybe even past versions of ourselves, things we're, maybe subconsciously afraid of losing or forgetting if we let go of the physical thing. They bridge that gap between now and then.
And there's a specific example in the article, someone sorting through their mother's things.
Yes, author Barbara Rubel. It's a very relatable story. She
Yeah.
talks about this strong, almost contradictory feeling.
How so?
Well, on one hand, being surrounded by her mom's stuff was comforting. It felt close. But at the same time, it was kind of paralyzing. The source quotes her saying she felt the items keep her alive in some way. And the idea of parting with them, it felt like too permanent a goodbye.
Wow. Okay, that really hits home. It captures that feeling.
Mm.
That if you let go of the thing, you're somehow letting go of the person or the importance of that time.
Exactly. It feels like diminishing the memory or the loss.
But, and here's the tricky part, the source also says these comforting items are often where the friction happens in families.
Absolutely. Because, the article argues, the real value, the lasting value, it isn't usually in the physical object itself.
It's in the story.
It's in the stories, the meaning, the memories, the emotions attached to it. The object is just kind of the container.
Okay, but if the story is the main thing, why does the physical object cause so much conflict?
Because people connect differently. And without a shared plan or understanding in the family about how to handle these things, those intense personal feelings clash.
Especially when there's pressure.
Right. The source mentions things like needing to clear a house quickly or just not having enough space. That's when you see what it calls that built-in disagreement.
Between who?
Between the relatives who need that physical object to feel connected and those who are okay with just the memory, maybe a photo. Their needs collide.
I see. So one person needs to touch it, see it, the other feels the connection anyway, and then add a deadline. Yeah, I can see how that explodes.
Precisely. It's about different ways of processing feelings, maybe even grief, and the objects become the focal point.
Okay, so given all that emotional weight and the potential for conflict, how does the source suggest we actually handle this in that kinder way the title mentions? There's a framework. 4 steps.
Yes, a 4-step framework. And the emphasis throughout is on making it less overwhelming, less likely to trigger guilt, more manageable.
Step 1 is pause and give yourself grace. Sounds
Yeah.
like acknowledging everything we just talked about.
Exactly that. It's foundational. You don't start by saying, I need to get rid of 10 things today. No quotas.
So what do you do?
You just pause. Pick up an item. Notice the feelings, the memories that come up, but without any pressure yet to decide what happens to it. Just sit with it for a bit.
And why is that grace period so important? Why not just jump in?
Because, the source points out, professional organizers warn against forcing it. If you push yourself to make decisions about sentimental things too early, before you've processed the feelings,
You feel guilty.
or resist.
Both. Intense guilt resistance. That feeling of having to discard things makes people shut down. They get overwhelmed and end up keeping everything because making a decision feels too hard, too final. A gentler start works much better over time.
Makes sense. Okay, don't force it. Feel the feelings.
Then step 2, define your container. This sounds more practical.
It is. It introduces a boundary, a limit, but in a thoughtful way. You choose a specific, limited space for these keepsakes.
What kind of space?
Could be anything, really. One shelf on a bookcase,
Yeah.
a particular chest or trunk, or even, a specific folder on your computer for the digital stuff.
So you set a physical or digital limit on how much you'll keep.
Exactly. You decide how much space you're actually willing and able to give to these items. And the source quotes an organizer, Margaret Ellison, on the logic here. It's simple but effective. When that box is full, you either remove something or stop adding.
Ah, so it forces a choice, but within limits.
Yes, it stops the collection from just spreading everywhere. It shifts the question to what's important enough to fit in this space.
That does feel more positive than what can I throw out?
Yeah.
Okay, step 3, digitize and tell the story. This sounds like it connects back to the idea of the story being the real value.
This is really key for keeping the essence without keeping the physical bulk. The recommendation is to actively capture the story and the visuals.
How? Like taking photos.
Taking photos, yes, of letters, objects, maybe recording yourself or your aunt telling the story behind, say, your dad's old watch. Scanning ticket stubs, kids' drawings.
Capturing the context.
Precisely. And the article mentions there are tools and services to help with the tech side. Yeah, it names companies like Legacy Box or Capture Places that specialize in converting old media. Those dusty VHS tapes, film reels, boxes of photos, turning them into digital files you can store easily.
Takes away a big hurdle for people.
Definitely. So the power here is that the memory, the story, the image, the sound it lives on. And it's often more accessible and safer digitally.
Right. You still have the connection, the history, maybe even more reliably than a fragile old photo, but it's not taking up room in your house.
You've distilled the memory, basically.
Yeah.
Separated it from the physical material.
Which brings us to step 4, offer and release. Okay, this is where the physical item's fate is decided.
Correct. This is for the items you didn't choose to keep in your container or the physical originals of things you digitized. The process is pretty straightforward. First, ask relatives if they want specific things. Give them a chance.
Offer it within the family first.
Yes. Then, for anything left over, you move forward, donate it, recycle it, release it.
And the source is really clear about what this step doesn't mean, right?
Very clear. It emphasizes getting rid of these items is not the same as getting rid of the person or the love or the memory. It's not erasing the past.
It's curation.
Exactly. Curation. The article uses a great phrase, saying this process helps you create a whole picture without all the things. You're like an editor, choosing the pieces physical or digital that best represent the whole story, rather than keeping every single draft.
That's a much better way to think about it. Not loss, but thoughtful selection, editing down to the essentials.
Precisely. It's an active, positive choice about what story you want to carry forward.
Okay, so that's the individual process. But the source also talks about the family dynamic, how to turn that potential conflict we mentioned into, well, connection.
Yes, this is really important because often these items matter to multiple people, so it offers ways to make it collaborative.
The first idea sounds interesting, a show and share evening.
Yeah, it's a structured way to get family together around the items. You pass things around, let people hold them, share their memories or stories about that object.
Well, I like that.
And it suggests maybe even filming short clips of people sharing those stories.
To capture those different viewpoints.
Exactly, you get all the layers of meaning. Then, after the sharing, the family decides together what happens to the physical thing, who wants it. Or maybe the recorded stories are enough and the object can go.
It shifts the focus from who gets what to the shared experience.
Right. It reduces the tension around possession.
Much better. Okay, second idea. A shared digital album.
This builds on the digitizing step. You gather all those photos, scans, voice notes, maybe the video clips from the show and share.
And put them all in one place online.
In one shared, organized digital space, yes. The big advantage, the source points out, is access.
Everyone can see it.
Everyone in the family, no matter where they live, they can all access the memories anytime. It kind of democratizes the family history, takes it out of one person's attic, and makes it available to all.
That's really powerful. Okay, and the third idea for families is about setting guidelines now for the future.
Yeah, this is proactive. Having conversations before you're in a crisis situation. Agreeing as a family on what happens to items nobody claims by a certain date.
Like, will they be automatically donated
Yeah,
or digitized and discarded?
something like that. Making those potentially tough calls together calmly when you're not under pressure or dealing with fresh grief.
So clear expectations are set in advance.
Exactly. The source says this really cuts down on misunderstandings and hurt feelings later on when things might be more emotional and rushed. It's planning together for your shared history.
Having the conversation before becomes a crisis conversation. Makes sense. Now, the source also mentions a specific type of tool that can help with all this, especially the curate your memories part.
Yes, it discusses something called a life portrait. It presents this kind of tool as more than just digital storage. It's framed as a structured way to curate the memories and, importantly, the narrative around someone's life.
Keeping the story central, what features does it highlight?
Well, first, being a central hub. A secure, private place online to store all sorts of things, photos, videos, audio recordings, written stories, bringing it all together in one organized portrait.
Instead of scattered everywhere.
Right. It also mentions automated prompts,
Prompts.
gentle questions, guides, to help people capture stories they might not think of otherwise. You know, sometimes you just don't know where to start documenting a life. This
Yeah.
gives some structure.
Helps you tell the story. Got it.
Then there's private sharing. You can invite specific family members, kids, grandkids to view or maybe even add to the portrait. But it's controlled private, not like public social media.
Keeps it within the family circle.
Mm-hmm. And finally, it talks about a built-in storytelling feature, like the tool can help create video collages or other narrative presentations from the stuff you've uploaded.
Weaving it together.
Yeah, weaving it into a story, useful for memorials maybe, but also just for sharing and remembering together anytime.
So this kind of tool, as the source presents it, is really about making the gathering, organizing, and sharing of the stories easier, supporting that curation process.
That's exactly how it's positioned, as something that fits into that gentle framework for curating memories.
Okay. So we've covered the why we hold on, the friction points, the 4 gentle steps, the family strategies in this type of tool. Bringing it all home, the source has a pretty powerful final thought, doesn't it? But what this whole process really means.
It does, and it sums it all up beautifully.
Mhm.
It says that dealing with sentimental clutter, this curation, it isn't about throwing away the past. It's not about erasing anything.
It's about
It's about distilling the past.
distilling,
Yes.
like getting it down to its purest, most potent form.
Exactly, extracting the essence. And the source argues when you combine that mindful curation, that gentle selecting of what really matters most with digital preservation, you get 2 great results.
Yep.
You free up physical space, you ease the clutter and the pressure, but at the same time, you're safeguarding the stories, the connections, the history that really holds the emotional value.
Creating physical space while actually strengthening the emotional connection.
That's the idea, and it paints this picture, a compelling vision for the future if you do this thoughtfully now.
What's that final thought?
It suggests that if you take these steps, if you consciously curate your memories, your legacy, then when the next generation looks back, whether they open a small physical memory box or access a digital portrait you've created,
They won't find just overwhelming piles of stuff.
no, they'll find something focused, meaningful, personal. A clear, heartfelt portrait of the life you lived, told through the specific stories and items you chose to preserve.
A curated legacy. A portrait of stories, not just things. That's definitely a different way to look at a task many of us dread. Something to really think about next time you face those boxes.